Smilodon. 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 No, the saber-toothed tiger. Not smile if your name is Don. Well, I was told that's how it's pronounced, and not Smilodon as I had been pronouncing some time ago. These are two knives, fixed blades, if you will, from the custom shop of Dirk Pinkerton. But we're not really talking about these today. We're talking about another that's going to make an appearance in a moment. And it's going to make an appearance because it's going to overshadow these two by just a bit in terms of size. Now, the Smilodons that most people that have bought these from Dirk are used to is one with, yes, the short handle that he likes to do to give you just enough grip and not have any leverage for someone to take it away. This one's a beautiful double edge, and it is in kind of a tapering point. And the other is what you'd call, I suppose, a reverse tanto with the edge in. Now, these are all built around a style of knife use and defense called Pikal. It's a Filipino term which relates to ripping or tearing, okay? This way, like an animal's claw or tooth. So in this case, the saber-toothed tiger. There's Dirk's interesting logo, which is really, the DP is a double exposure of his famous broadhead, his variable broadhead. That's what I had found, which is his signature blade. These are beautifully done out of G10 with variegated layers and a beautiful satin finish. So we're going to leave those there. This, by the way, is my favorite in terms of handle because I prefer a larger handle with just enough to lock me in. It's a much more secure feeling for me. For others, they may not worry about that, and the standard Smilodon handle is fine. Okay, here it comes. So now we have what Dirk simply refers to as the large Smilodon. I have taken the liberty of naming this one, since I own it, the Magnum Smilodon. Let's see if we can get the full blade in there. There we go. Look at that. Coming around from the right side here. I'm trying to get my whole hand in the camera, in the frame. But I'm going to jab my reflector there if I do. But here you can see that the handle is just long enough for 4 fingers. And yes, these are held with the edge down and the point forward. But look at the size difference with, I guess, what you'd call the standard Smilodon. Look at the difference. Pretty incredible. And I'm going to see if I can tone down the exposure a little bit so we don't blanch out those blades. There we go. Look at that. Baby, mama, and papa Smilodons. So we're going to talk about this in a bit, but you can see, particularly if you're a Filipino martial artist, we weren't doing these types of blades. We were doing more with the Pikal of just a short dagger blade. But these are very specialized, and they in part came about because of Ed Calderon and Ed's manifesto and the Elvia knife, named after a fruit knife that his mother used, both to prepare vegetables and fruits every day and also to defend the family when needed. And you may or may not know that story. So comparatively, the blade's a little more narrow than this middle-sized guy, and maybe about the same as the small one. These don't really have names, just Smilodon. As I said, I wanted to give this a special name since it's got a good length blade for this style of knife where you normally see a shorter one, and I'm going to do more compares in a moment. The steel is MagnaCut on this one, even though you don't see any markings. You only see Dirk's moniker there. He said that he was having some trouble with his stencil, and so the MagnaCut marking is underneath the handle. And these are relatively easily removed with the Torx screws on both sides. So I would imagine if I took those off, and I don't need to validate it, I certainly trust Dirk if he says it's MagnaCut, it is. But the word MagnaCut is on the steel under the handle, if you must. Overall length of this one is 8 3/4. I mean, there's even some folders that are 9 inches when they're open. So I guess this is could be termed to be short in relation to those. The blade, if I go right to the handle, we'll call it 5 1/4 to 5 1/2, 5 1/4. Cutting edge, which is really the business end of this, is coming in a little over 4 1/2. But you can see that it kind of rounds the bend there and becomes a little bit longer, closer to 4 3/4, same length as the blade. As far as the thicknesses go, the handle, pretty slim actually, in inches, 0.48. And the steel stock, pretty thick, 0.13 or 3.4 millimeters. Not extremely thick, but thick enough. And you can see that he has managed to keep the meat of the blade pretty significant right out to the tip, which thins out a little bit. Now this is a hollow grind, so you're losing a little more material in order to get that edge. But oh boy, is it devastatingly sharp. And there you've got the configuration in the handle so that it fits into the fingers with this swell right here, and is flat where it goes into the palm, more or less. Just a little bit of two angles there in the palm of your hand. Beautifully finished and beautifully ground, as we've come to expect from Dirk, with those longitudinal belt satin grinds and the vertical ones on the grind for the edge. I'm going to try some some cutting tests with a little bit of paper. So hang on. And here we go. This is by and large both a piercing knife and a cutting knife. So it pierces and then rips. And Dirk did not disappoint us with this edge. All the way through. Right from that round to the tip. Incredible. But should we expect less? Absolutely not, because Dirk has proven to us in the past that he can grind a blade, and as Bob DeMarco likes to mention often when showing off Pinkerton blades, he is extremely well respected amongst his peers for his ability to grind fine edges. Here's the sheath. Pretty much a simple Kydex sheath. You get a Kydex sheath with every one of Dirk's knives. However, you don't get mounting hardware. That is up to you, whether you use a DCC clip, a Tech Lock, a belt loop, or what have you. You set it up the way you want, and look at all those grommets you got there. You got plenty of holes to attach whatever you would like. And with most of his knives, you will see these two tongues these two tabs that come up alongside the handle, and they're molded into the texture of the handle when there's a texture. You can thumb it off, but it takes a few pushes. So this is best attached to a belt, grabbed and pulled out. So I'm going to do some compares. Most of these are going to be shorter knives. Now, for a general compare, here's the Street Beat from Spyderco, since that's a well-known knife to many of us. That is a good deal longer, maybe a good 3 inches or so. Of course, this is not a Pikal knife, not really set up to be one. Here is the MR1 from Pikal Knives, a beautiful ringed Pikal knife, wherein he took one of his standard models, and the name of that eludes me, it might be the Nighthawk, and sharpened the reverse edge and raised it slightly. So it would look as though with this knife that should be the edge, but it is not. That is the edge. And we've got a little more raised point going on there. I'll leave that out. And we also have, and this is, I'm going to have to actually, I don't know why I keep forgetting the name on this guy. I should remember it. It's extremely well known, and it is, I would say, well advertised by Fieldworks, Ryan Atkinson, as a knife that he really appreciates and helped design. And it is the MF Bladeworks Vandal. Okay, you can see how much shorter the typical, if you want to call it that, Pikal knife is. All right, you bring it right down to the handle there. We've got like 3.5 inches longer blade on this guy. It's incredible. Probably closer to 3. Anyway, with the Vandal, we've got actually a slightly bigger handle, which I like. As I said, I like to have that little extra sticking out there and to be locked in with that bird's beak, okay? And you can see that even though the blades are far different in length, that the point is raised slightly more on the Vandal, so that the point is ensured of reaching the target first. Target being the bad guys. Here's another by Dirk, which he refers to as his feral. He was going to start making more of these, but I haven't seen too many hit his Instagram page. Could be he is still doing them, or he may have revised them. This is, I think, his effort to have more of an Elvia style knife with that raised point. Okay, so for the length of the knife, the point is almost even with what would be the top of the handle where we're holding it here. And you can cap that nicely. So you can see the approach on the arc presents that point pretty well. And finally, this is not a Pikal knife, but this is another one of Dirk's, also in MagnaCut. And that is his Urban Nomad, a Wharncliffe style blade with that clip. He loves to do a lot of these. If you look at all of his styles, including the Main Street by Concept, you will see that he really prefers the Wharncliffe blade. And this could be used this way, although it doesn't feel entirely comfortable. It's more of a sock knife, or what we call in the Filipino martial arts a knife that is held point up, hammer grip, and edge forward. Okay, and this is a very comfy knife as well in the hand. Beautifully done. great lightweight size, and so forth. Speaking of that, didn't get the weight on this for you, did I? My bad. Not that it's super going to matter for you, but fairly lightweight for a fixed blade. We're going to call it 4.4. Any other comparisons? Well, let's compare it to the Rat 1. Well-known knife. And look at that. Almost the same length, fully open. Isn't that crazy? No, we look at this as a big knife. It does have a longer blade significantly if we go handle to handle by almost 2 inches. And how does it stack up against a well-known knife, the Griptilian? Right there. And the Griptilian is about 3/4 of an inch shorter. So yeah, folding knives are sizable compared to many smaller fixed blades. And at slightly under 9 inches, I guess you could call this a medium-sized fixed blade, but for Pikal, it is long. Hence the name that I gave it, the Magnum Smilodon. There we have it. Another great work of art, combat art, tactical art. I know I borrowed that from Bastinelli, but it certainly is tactical art. And there's a lot of makers out there that are giving us tactical art these days. Well, stay tuned for the next one. Got quite a few knives coming up for review, and some just coming in and some already in. And I'm a little behind. I meant to do the review on this one a couple weeks ago, but it's sort of a one of a kind. I don't think you're going to see exactly this knife again. That's the thing about customs. By the way, a custom made in the U.S., made in his shop in North Carolina. Dirk Pinkerton. Great work. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. I'll be back soon. Be well.